what happens. There we go. We're recording, so let's see what comes up, and no pressure to say anything wise or intelligent.
Oh, that's easy then.
That's a good start. Because I haven't.
Have we got a topic or not really?
See, this is the funny thing about these meetings. There is no agenda and there's no topic, and it used to fill me with a sort of dread when we first started, because we're so used to having a topic and knowing where to go. And then we start the meeting and there's this sort of silence. It's like Chris and I did these groups when we were doing our training, and there were 16 people per group. And they said to us, we're going to do a group. It was like part of our training. And they just said, okay, well, there's no agenda, there's no topic. Everyone just get together in a group and see what happens. And we met every week for 2 hours. And it was so interesting. It was just so much stuff came up about being in groups and having plans and agendas and stuff. And I think this is a bit like that, really, like anything comes out. And Dave's got his hand up, but I actually mentioned this group to Dave recently because we were talking about sort of humanity and how actually when you leave people to it, generally we're okay. I mean, there were big fights in those groups. I think you remember, Chris, but it generally sort of worked its way out by the end of it. What we did was we got all the separate groups to come back together at the end into one big mass group. So all the sort of 4 groups of 16 at the end all came together, and it was all on Zoom, so it was during COVID. And there was a lot of sort of shadow work and a bit of drama, but everything was managed. It was all contained, and to me, it was quite a nice testament to humanity that actually, when we all get together, things aren't really that bad, and things can be managed, and it all sort of works out in the end. But yeah, this is a bit like one of those meetings, I suppose. There's no topic, no agenda. But Dave's very politely put his hand up, so I guess that'll be the next the next thing that we do.
Oh yeah, hi. Well, I thought I thought somebody had better say something. I might as well be me. I think that it's not easy to find something to talk about that's not yourself with these meetings. I mean, what other experience do we have? I mean, whatever you conceive yourself to be, each of us is going to talk about ourselves, which is a bit ironic considering that it's down to this non-duality thing. Still, there we go. Everything I've ever said on here seems to be all this introspective stuff about me and what I think and what I don't and what hangs me up and what doesn't hang me up. And it's me, 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 me. And I think that I suspect all you feel the same as well. But sometimes you can have so much of this me, 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 me business that you can end up quite fed up with yourself, really. And I remember sharing a particularly nice space with an old friend of mine now, a couple of years ago. And I think she was fed up with me being as gobby as I am. And I noticed her sitting in the corner and looking quite sort of quiet and serene. And I said, "Hey, what are you up to, Sue? What's going on over there?" And she said, "Oh, I'm just having a break from myself," which actually meant she was having a break from me and that I should keep my gob shut. I realised what she meant. And I don't blame her, because that's as it is. I posted something today, I think it was, lambasting myself for being, I don't know, making smart ass remarks. See, when somebody says something, what should I say, nice, insightful, whatever, you name it, you can either just say, "Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, so that, oh so true, da 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 da," or you can find something to talk about in it. And if you want to find something to talk about in it, I mean, my mind works in such a way as that I'm going to pick holes in it. And so when somebody makes a bold statement of fact, like, I don't know, whatever, love is everywhere, I mean, straight away my mind springs to, well, where's the holes in that? Is that true or is that not? And I don't mean, when I respond in that vein, to be having a go at somebody. It's an opportunity, as far as I'm concerned, for them to respond, because we're playing with words here, aren't we? We're playing with words. It's a Facebook group. We have words to talk like we're doing now. We have words that we type out using our best typewriting and correct all the punctuation before we post it. So it's for dialogue, conversation, debate, if you like. And the dividing line between debate and conflict is kind of a narrow one. And I edge over into conflict now and again, catch myself and put a smiley face at the end of it, but it actually doesn't cover it up at all. What it means is I put my foot in it and I've listened to somebody's response and I've thought, oh, fuck you, take this. And that's not what this should be about, but we're all people. I mean, we wouldn't be here if we weren't getting inspired, helped, whatever, by each other's company, each other's, and we level each other out. And I think it's unrealistic for me anyway, to think that I can spend X amount of time interacting with various different people and never think to myself, what the fuck are you talking about? That's absolutely nuts. But it's not constructive to say that. So you think of something that sounds a bit more interesting to say, but in actual fact, that's probably what you mean. So, and Claire, you posted something about that sort of thing earlier on. And I put something in reply to say, yeah, I own up to that. That's what I do most of the time. I do that a lot. And I took for a little while to just sticking heart symbols after everything that people said. And I thought that's really enough because it's not interesting for them. If somebody says something, well, play with the idea. It's an idea. It's like somebody's thrown you a ball, chuck it back. And so I think that I do that. And we're so frightened of being contentious that we substitute little heart symbols or oh so true or amen or whatever for something which would be a lot more interesting to receive back. So if somebody sends you something back which is challenging, I mean, your first response might be, oh, bloody hell, yeah, that's a bit in your face. I'm not sure that I like that. But your next response should be, that's interesting. How am I going to deal with that? Has this person actually made a point? Am I the arsehole that I've just been told that I am? And it's especially interesting if what your answer to yourself is yes, I am. And that breaks a little barrier in yourself to see that, to own it, and to actually say that you've owned it and say, yep, you've caught me out. I have been doing that thing. It's a minor thing, but it's all part of the process of dealing with each other. I guess this is different stuff that I'm talking about from my usual psychedelic nonsense that I come out with, which is kind of in the past and whatever. But there you go. I'll wrap up now because otherwise I'll go on for ages because I do ramble a lot. There you go. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. I put my hand up. I always put my hand up quite quickly as you start talking because you trigger so many thoughts for me. And it seems like we're talking about relationships and sharing and conflict and agreement and groups. You know, the group I used the example earlier. There was so much conflict, and we got together in these little groups. And these were trainee psychotherapists. You'd think that they would really have sorted out their crap, but obviously they hadn't. And it's as you say, Dave, you know, if you can hold that and you reflect on it. So somebody says something to you that's quite direct, and it can be so quick to sort of fire back because it hits on something that you know, feels threatening perhaps. So you sort of shoot back, you know, and that you've got me all wrong. I think it's that sort of being misunderstood by people. If somebody says something that feels like they don't get you, it can be really hurtful. But I think that's about, you know, having compassion. If we're able to sit with all of our feelings, you know, we can sit with that hurt, if we can sit with that disappointment of being misunderstood, if it doesn't matter that people don't understand us, we still know that our worth isn't dependent on them reflecting it back to us. I think so many of us want everyone to agree with us because we want our worth to be reflected back. We want to be seen as good people. We want to be seen as valuable and as doing good and as worthwhile. And it's just not going to happen because there's always going to be somebody who thinks you're an arsehole. You can be the nicest person in the world. You can do everything right, but it might just be that you have an accent they don't like, or you're too short, or that it could be absolutely anything that they don't like about you. It's not even anything personal. But I think when we confuse ourselves when we don't really know who we are, we can sometimes take it very personally. We take that person's comment to us, and we sort of might bristle, we get offended because we feel like there's something in us personally that's being attacked. So I think you're right. I think if you can just take a step back and listen to, okay, where is that landing? What's going on here? What's really being attacked? And it may be that you respond with a sort of controvert. I mean, you say pick holes. You can respond with a challenging comment. And I mean, there's beauty in that. I love it. This is what I love about your posts and certain people as well. They're so sort of almost confrontational, but it's funny and it's intelligent because they're just pointing out discrepancies, and it needn't be an attack. It's just an interesting way of reflecting back to that other person by holding up a mirror. So I think, yeah, there's a lot to say about it, really. But ultimately, I'm saying the same thing, which is that no, you were looking at me like you're going to say something and it's distracting me. So go on the subject of relationships.
Well, no, I just think that actually, those meetings have been quite a few now. And it's a bit like collective psychotherapy. That's the way I look at them, that everyone talks about themselves and they push out something that obviously they've been considering. So I think that Dave is perfectly right saying it's about me, 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 me. But that's what we do in psychotherapy. You express yourself, you vocalize and rationalize something which was inside of you, and you put a nice package in front of you, and somebody will respond to it in one way or another. And that goes back to this enriching to a large extent, but it is limited within the group. And for me, I think when I see a group like that of amazing people, I want to say, oh, come on, what have you got to offer to the people who are not part of the group? Can you actually extract something really positive that you can give out? And also, I want to say something which is totally irrelevant. Sorry, and I will stop at that. Today, I met that lady, Maggie, who actually could hardly walk. She was a two-stick. I went to see some friends, and we had lunch, a very good lunch, by the way. And I asked her, like you do, when you have nothing much to talk about, what she did in life. And she said, I'm a travel agent. I said, oh, yeah, interesting. And she said, but I only do one thing. I sell fly fishing holidays. That's all I do. So I said, oh, that's a bit limited. She said, it's a fantastic business. I go to Norway, I go to Iceland, I go to Canada with all those people. Only very rich people go doing that, and I make a fortune. I don't know if anybody wants to go fly fishing. That's or the business to get in. Sorry, sorry about that.
Michael, you had your hand up.
There's a conventional view of conversations that I think is generally accepted. Well, it is generally accepted that there are two people actually talking to each other. I think that's an illusion. I see the persona, the self, the I amness, as ultimately alone in a world of self-referential memories. And any input from what is seen to be outside of that is filtered through the prism of me. It's all me in this world of swirling memories. I think it's like a mother mirror. The I amness is a mother mirror that creates a hologram of self from the light of others. That there is a group dynamic that occurs that's very pleasant. I've experienced it in hospice groups. Where else? I don't remember where else, really. In this group, really. It feels like light pouring in that somehow affects my memory bank, my I amness. And who knows how? These are just ideas that are objectified also. I mean, they're the meanness trying to grope its pseudo reality, a reality that doesn't actually exist. I benefited from therapy. I think I was ripe, though. I was ready for change. And whatever happened was healing. But I don't think it was one person talking to another. I think it was something so far beyond our ability to objectify that we'll never get it. The compassion, the love I felt for my therapist was really me, loving me. It was opening up a channel where I could see light again. Now, I don't think that was a person that caused that. I don't think persons really exist as anything other than a swirling collage of memories. The feeling I have for each of you, once I know a little bit about you, I was delighted when Christopher showed up again. Oliver always thrills me. Rowena, Raja, Claire and Sylvain, David, Phyllis. Something magical happens that we'll never grasp. They know that they get a group together and there's a group think and something happens. And ideas merge and holograms are moving and scintillating and reflecting off of each other. Tribal again, back to tribal. We are tribal creatures. 1,000,000 years in small tribes, one unit. We needed the bowl maker, the fire maker, the storyteller. They were who we were. We're missing that now. This is as close as we can get to that. But it's close enough for me. Raja?
Thanks, Michael. You brought the attention back to who we are, rather, than what we think we are. And yeah, oftentimes when we are talking to others, you think that I'm talking to Michael, but I'm just talking to who I think Michael is. In my mind, I've made up a whole thing about this Michael character. I've manifested my Michael, and I like my Michael. But I don't know if that is real Michael, because I don't know the whole of what you are. And yeah, it's just an image talking to, like I'm talking to an image. And yeah, and each time we talk, we add something new to it, something more. And I like what Dave brought up because it's so relevant to this that we all are encountering now. The closer we get to each other as a group, the more we start to function as a group. And yeah, that's the group dynamics is another thing, especially what you brought up, Dave, about conflict. Like I know that we had like a little conflict going on there for a bit. And Dave was like, yeah, it was so funny because the thing is, we are going to get into conflict with people. There's no doubt about it. Because oftentimes we have these ideas of how our world should be, and then people step in and they want to make it different. They don't, and we think that they're not respecting us, or they're coming into our territory now. So how do we solve these conflicts? That's the thing now, and you must know from time immemorial, people have been having conflicts. And the good part of it, like when Dave and I had a conflict, we grew closer as a result of that, which is so amazing. I like that. And sometimes you have a conflict and you're like now on two teams now, and yeah, and people don't want to listen to you. Sometimes they want to talk over your head. Like you're trying to say something and trying to get across to them that you're not really angry with them, but they don't want to listen to you. They're talking over your head now, and they want to shut you up because somehow what you are saying doesn't go with what they believe or whatever. So yeah, that's the thing now. We should actually have things like that, like discuss how do we go about resolving conflicts? How do we get to a situation where we end up in a win-win kind of a situation, where there's no losers? When we walk away from this conflict, we're looking at, hey, we have both won. We both feel good about it. It's not that you lost now and I'm winning and I'm so proud that I won. It's like you're putting people down now and making them feel. So and who is it that is that? It is you, yourself, at the end of the day, that we're putting down and that we're creating this conflict with. So I don't know, that's a good thing to look deeper into and find out, like, how do we negotiate? What roles do people play in a conflict? How do you handle people who just don't want to listen to what you have to say, and things like that? It's good. It's part of what Claire is doing at the moment, I think. Like confronting people with what is happening. Just confront people sometimes. I mean, why don't you like why don't you like what I have to say? And sometimes it works out well, and sometimes you just break up. I don't know. But that doesn't stop me from loving the people that I fight with. You can't stop loving them because they're still a part of you. Thanks.
I was going to share something about people and how how so many people are seeking something in other people. It was something you said, Razia, about your Michael, and how you can only really see people clearly if you're not wanting to gain anything from them. It's
Yes.
because I think when we get together, there's often a sort of a need or a want, or so many people are attracted because they're trying to complete themselves. There's a sort of sense of that person's got something I want, and if I partner up with them, then I'm going to somehow have it for myself as well. It can sometimes be quite subtle, really. But I think as long as there's this sort of subtle seeking, then it's very difficult to really see that person because you're seeing what you want them to be. And then if they act in a way that is any different to what you're expecting and wanting them to be, then that is what creates, for me, the conflict, because you've got some sort of an expectation of that person. They're going to behave in a particular way because that's how you need them to behave. And it takes a lot of compassion. As you say, you love them regardless, but it takes so much compassion to be okay when somebody does something that you're not expecting, you're not okay with, or you feel that is not necessarily what you want. So you wanted the red cup, but they gave you the blue cup. I don't know. There's something like that, and people can get very attached to things as well. Territories. If England was taken over by France, people get very, very attached to these identities because you've made your identity as a British national, and somehow I'm going to be French, and I don't want that. And if you're really wedded to the idea that something has to be the same way in order for you to be at peace, then obviously there's going to be quite a violent conflict, I'd say. I mean, I would say there would still be some sort of a conflict if someone said to you that they want you to do something that wasn't necessarily what you were doing, but you can have a conversation with them. It's a sort of, okay, well, I don't, like Dave was saying, you can say to that person, well, I disagree, and these are the reasons why. That person can say, okay, well, I disagree, and these are the reasons why. You could sort of go back and forth. And there's much more likely to be some kind of a resolution if you're not identified and attached to any particular outcome. So yeah, I think in terms of conflict, Razia, you're totally right. We can't avoid it because we're humans and we're material and we've got limited resources and we've got different wants. But when we come up in conflict with somebody else, there can be a discussion. There doesn't need to be a sort of digging in or a fear, I suppose. I think that's where it comes from. It's this kind of survival fear where you become very attached to what you have and you need it to be that way in order for you to feel at peace. So it's a sort of softening of that. And then I would say it's much more likely for conflict to be resolved in the way that we might not want it, but in a way that is still manageable and fair for both parties. So that's my global diplomacy for the evening complete. Don't have anything else to say about conflict.
Oliver?
What I wanted to say might be somehow paraphrasing what Claire said. When I think about conflict, I'm thinking about the absolute sense. If it's possible to not to have any kind of conflicts in any level. Firstly, interpersonal between one person and another. And secondly, on larger scale, humanity, different groups of people. And that's actually what I usually think about it, because although it might be out of controls of individuals, but it still matters and it still affects our lives dramatically. In one-on-one situations, I think expectations that you mentioned are unavoidable, because as long as you have a self-image, that self-image is fragile. It can be hurt because self-image means an assumption. And any assumption can be questioned with behaviors or words or unspoken language. And maybe we can extrapolate that to larger scale, the nations, countries, as long as a group of people have interest and preference, which is, again, assumed to be obvious that every groups of people have interests and preferences. The conflicts will go on. But still, I really like to question that seemingly impossible scenario of whether or not this conflict can finally end. Absolutely, not relatively.
There's no resolution to this conundrum as long as the conventional perspective is maintained. And I think for any society, that is the way it is. There never will be a resolution to conflict. We are individually separate and linguistically separate, and separate in so many other ways. As long as a person is seen as another person outside of you, there will be conflict. There will be misunderstandings. We're speaking a different language. Each of us has a different dictionary. We're not really talking to each other, as I mentioned before. Conflict arises when someone disagrees with our worldview. It is natural, and there's no way around that. There never will be peace on earth. Claire wrote a post on her page, and my response was that we are at heart killer apes. Our evolution is to survive, promote our gene pool, and protect it. There is peace for the imagined individual, the peace that passes understanding that it's talked about. When it dawns on the brain that there never was a me, there never existed another person. We are all beautiful mental fabrications, separate and alone in our world. I feel peace, the center of peace all the time. I do. And I put my foot into the conventional reality, and everything seems just like it used to be, and it feels like living between two worlds. One imaginary, beautiful, and full of conflict. The other, sublimely peaceful, always in the center. I don't know how to speak of that. I truly see my granddaughters as beautiful, swirling galaxies of self-referential memories housed in a physicalness that's beautiful. The world couldn't function if everybody saw it this way. I wouldn't vote for me for any office. Any problem that came up, say, I don't know. I don't know. The solution to problems, every politician has a definite opinion what to do about poverty and everything. And there's two main schools of thought in this country, and both of them are so terribly wrong. Nobody has answers to these incredibly complex problems. As I mentioned, the only peace you can ever find is inside. Kingdom of heaven is within. The whole world is within. It's the only world you can ever know.
You can't be functional in this system, indeed, but some people would want to imagine a totally different system.
Of course they would. That's just fear. We want peace in the world because we fear the turmoil. We're concerned about ourselves, really, and that's natural. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of the beauty of being alive. Something in us can realize that and embrace everything about ourselves, embrace every human quality, every urge, every desire, every reaction. Seems so natural. Everything is natural. Plastic is natural. Plastic in the ocean is natural. Everything is natural. There's nothing I can do about the political turmoil of the world. But I can find this peace inside. I think it's part of the human inheritance, the possibility of peace, but only inside of us. Raja, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I agree with you, Michael, because when I first started this, I remember when we first spoke on Facebook. Lots of the times I used to ask you like about stuff like how can we get rid of people clinging to their identities? How can we get rid of I am Indian or I am brown and you are white or I am Indian and you are Russian? It was these differences that really like bugged me, you know. I mean, it was the differences that we couldn't seem to overcome. And I used to sit there and think about things like eventually all the whites will get married to all the brown people, and then we'll have a mixed community. And then we won't have black and white racial issues, you know? It was like always like coming up with like something or the other. Like, how do you get rid of these differences? And yeah, at the end of it all, we can't really do much about that. And then I think, like Michael said, eventually you start to say, hey, I can't change the world out there. Let me start with the change here, inside here. Let me start changing. Let me start looking at the world differently. Let me go there with love in my eyes and see if I can, if that makes a difference now. And the funny thing is, it started to make a difference because I was now not looking to change the world, you see. Somehow fell in love with who I was. I started liking myself because I was doing things to become a better person. And it was so amazing. I was looking out there and this woman, like my mother-in-law, I mean, like just between us, I never liked my mother-in-law because she was so like strict, and fussy and stuff like that. And but after I started to do this, now I'm starting to look at her. It was like a shift. Like you're looking at the same person, and now you're looking at them with this love now. And I was like massaging her feet and making her feel so good, and doing things that I would never ever do for another human being because I didn't like them. But now it was past that. I was now looking at shifting into this thing like where I started to see, looking at them with love. And when she passed on, I felt so sad. I couldn't bear the pain of losing her. And I mean, that's it. I don't know how that happened, how that shift kind of happened, but it happens. And like Michael says, it happens inside. We want to go change the world. And we are that world. It is our world. And there's 8 million worlds out there. And that's so beautiful. But I'm just so grateful that I can look out there and see that sometimes. Sometimes I go wrong. I'm not perfect. And people bring that to my attention. It's so good. But thanks for this group and for the love. Thank you.
David?
Yeah, I was just thinking lots of things. I was just thinking that a lot of the stuff that I say and that I think and that I tell people and what have you isn't stuff that I currently am immersed in. It's stuff that I have been immersed in, and I've taken back from those times a memory of those times. And I remember even asking somebody I was with to tell me what they were feeling and to remember the words that they'd used and to remember the words the following day and the following week. And although the words were the same, the experience wasn't so deep the week after. And so the difference between the two things is one of them is knowing, and the other one is not belief, because belief by definition is blind, but is faith, based on something that you've seen, somewhere that you've been. And so to take this full circle, a lot of the stuff that I say and that I think, and I've turned into, I've calcified it in my mind, really, the thoughts and the ideas. A lot of them are now dead. A lot of them are a narrative which I've set up for myself times past, and I've maintained and I've retained to the current moment. And to balance that against what I actually know now is an interesting process. And I remember somebody probably quoting somebody else, but the quote was that I can't honestly say that I know anything about God, but I can't honestly say that I don't either. And that's probably the best way to describe what your experience is at the moment that you're saying it, rather than when you're in some other temporary, insightful, illuminated space. We were talking about world peace, and I've heard people threatening or promising or whatever world peace in so many different contexts, so many times, and it's usually in connection with some religion or cult or some way of thinking or whatever. And world peace, it seems to me, is a contradiction in terms. And so what I mean by that, I think, is that I don't know if you're all familiar with this, but there was a little fashion for, there was a song and it went along with a cartoon. And as the cartoon changed, it looked as if it was going to turn into something obscene. And so did the rhyme of the song. And instead, when it actually came to it, somebody's ass turned into a flower instead, because you were only seeing a very small bit of it, just one petal of the flower that looked like somebody's bum. But when the camera panned out, you saw the rest of it. And I think that possibly this business of homing in on the world, the political situation and what have you, what you're looking at is a microcosm, is a small part of the whole picture. And it's not that you need to take no notice of it. I'm not going to listen to that. I'm just going to meditate. My life is so calm and peaceful, blah, blah, blah. If you see the whole picture, perhaps that's where the conflict stops. That's when you see that there never was a conflict. The conflict is because your filtration system only allows you to see a small part of the whole. If that filtration system, if you're relieved from the torment of that, even briefly, for a minute or two, is all you need for your whole life. You need, if you have that filtration system removed, just for a minute and never again, you'll never forget that experience, because you'll understand that you are actually seeing everything filtered. As to why, there's a lovely quote by one of my favorite authors, Khalil Gibran, who I often mention. And he says words to the effect that, yeah, you're going to spend a lot of the time not able to see. You're going to be blind and you're going to be deaf. And he then goes on to say that when the time comes that you're no longer blind and you're no longer deaf, you won't resent or regret the period of time that you spent being blind and being deaf, because you'll understand the purpose in it. You'll understand how that worked and what that had got to do with everything and how it's your place in things. And there's no need to go frantically trying to hurry the process up. I know what I'll do. I'll do 3 hours meditation a day for the next 6 months to hurry the process up. I'll take this, that, and the other substance to hurry the process up. I'll do all this. In actual fact, and that comes back to that old Ram Dass quote, which I think is from somebody else, about don't bother, just live your life, draw the water, cut the wood, collect stamps if that's what you want to do. There's no harm, there's nothing lost. There's no time to, you can't waste your time. There's plenty of it. You can do what the hell you like. That things have never changed. Things are always the same. Things will always be the same. You're actually living in this bath of everything always being the same and never changing, including yourself. Michael uses this expression, self-referential, in a lot of the things he says. I think I get it, is that everything that you experience, we can't help, we think in terms of the outside of us and the inside of us. When you get to your skin, everything past your skin is the outside of you. But even if you go on the logic and not your actual experience, everything that you see, hear, think, whatever, you experience it inside yourself. Your eyes transfer images to your brain by some magical physiological process. You only ever live inside. There's no inside and there's no outside. There's just one side. That's all there is. And you can take the logic even further. And Michael was talking about this. There is only yourself. It can't be any other way. It makes sense. You don't always feel that. And although we keep on saying, oh yeah, there's only the one, that it's all non-dual. Duality is an illusion, da-di-da-di-da, there is only the self, other people don't exist. We keep on banging on about that, but it's not actually what we feel. We can follow the logic, and it's undoubtedly true by logic. And if you're lucky enough to go further in, it's undoubtedly true with your experience. In the meantime, we have to sort of, like Charlie Chaplin at the end of that film, hopping from one side of the border to the other. And we hop from understanding and experience to the theory and the logic and back again endlessly. And it's reflected in the things that we type in our posts. It's reflected in the things that we say, like I'm saying now. I think I better stop because I'm getting quite excited about this, and I'll battle on for ages. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Rowena.
So I've got no words of wisdom. I've been listening to everybody, but the words that my mind is very offline today. So the words are just flowing through, and it's more the energy, the connection. It's like, yeah, there's that words are flowing, and whatever every person's saying, it's like I can say yes to, yes, 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 yes. And so I have nothing to say. But a couple of days, Razia, you made that quote about tightrope walking without fear. And it was extraordinary because I had just driven back from England. And so I was, and then I had things to do the very next day. And somehow, and there was an old pattern that is become very faint. But when I leave England, and I don't know, Sylvain, if you ever have this, when I leave England, I'm sort of leaving my home. And there are still attachments, and I'm going into a sort of the unknown again. And plus, I live on my own now, and I have very few people that I deal with. No, here in life, I'm much more in Zoom. And so I had this feeling, and the world was just so full, and there was this such a feeling of only explained by walking on a tightrope. It was like, oh, I'm here, and it's okay, but it feels really shaky. And then there was sort of something, sort of like a bit of processing. But this morning, I woke up and there was this sort of like completely quietness, so much so that I met a friend for a walk and then almost drove around the roundabout the wrong way. I came out, Sylvain, and you would appreciate that, changing from France to England, and it was, but at the same time, it was like there was nothing going on in reaction. It was just, oh, how is it? And sort of that's what's here right now. But the feeling and the love, the enjoyment and everything is really alive. But that's my sharing.
Beautiful.
Rowena, that they are all wrong. When you are yourself on the left-hand side of the road, they are wrong there. They should know better and let you go past.
It would be nice like that, but
it is actually a strange experience to live abroad. So that because you start from a country, or that's my experience anyway, having a sort of imposed personality. I'm French or I'm English, and what does that mean really? It's only a group of habits which I've been taught, in my community. Then you go somewhere else, and then you see people. I say, "Oh, I'm English," and I look at them, and they have a range of habits which are different than mine. But they're only habits. None of those are us. They just learn attitudes. And then when you spend long time enough in one different country, then you come to make choices because, oh, well, I've got my habits, here they've got theirs, and some of theirs are better than the ones I had. So I'm going to, switch for theirs. And then now if I mix this one and that one, that makes a new one that nobody has, but that suits me. So you end up being actually eventually on your own because you no longer rely on the outside world to tell you who you are, and you've made your own sort and you feel very comfortable. I must say that I spent some years where I was very uncomfortable, like sitting in the middle of the channel, having no idea which side would want. Nobody wanted me, one side or the other. I felt very lonely and isolated. But eventually, I become, I suppose, who I am today, whatever that is, and I'm perfectly comfortable with it. I can stand alone, and then wherever I am is where I am, and that's fine.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
I'm sure you will get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I expect so.
And it's lovely because when I listen to Michael, who's got such beautiful images coming from what he says, and I agree we are on our own, but not quite agree. I think they are the people actually. I'm aware of it because when you are on your own, really on your own, then you have to see that there are other things moving around you, and you've got to acknowledge that. What is difficult, I find, is when I was younger anyway, you think, when you fall in love or something like that, you believe you can merge with somebody else and become a different person altogether. And then you discover maybe it's not that obvious to do. And you find that actually, eventually, there is no way of merging two bodies. You can try and pretend, but it doesn't really work. So you still find yourself being just you. And you have to become very comfortable with that and then relate to other people on a totally different level. And that's the level of respecting other people to see their value, to actually see your limited value and how you can fit in all that. I think it gives you an opportunity to do a totally different type of relationship with people, which, from my point of view, is so much more fulfilling because we are several, but all part of one, if you see what I mean. We all have a different job to do within the same environment.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've spoken too much now. So
That was
stop.
lovely. I really appreciated that. Thank you.
Deep in the seeker's mind is the belief that we will get somewhere, that something can be attained or manipulated in a way that will find peace. That's not true. There is no wholeness in the world. We stack all imaginary things in a pile and call it wholeness. It's an imaginary wholeness. Our perspective is objectified. It exists only in named objects. We cannot manipulate our named objectified world into a shape that we'll find peace with. There is no wholeness in the world. It's just an idea. The peace that comes after everything falls apart, the personal Armageddon. It's a realization, the deeply ingrained realization that nothing can be known. We don't know what water, electricity, magnetism are. We just don't know. We don't know what time and space are. They exist for us only as named objects. And we can try to analyze a named object by using other names. We'll never get there. It's like trying to solve the problems, social problems with math. The war is over when we lose everything, when everything is lost. Devastation, complete and utter devastation, the loss of everything known. No one knows what's going on, who or what we are, and no one ever will. people have suggestions on how to help us with our life, some of which are good, some of which are essentially useless. We can't manipulate the sense of self. It doesn't exist. The Surgadata calls it washing blood with blood. We're using language to correct this problem, and it exists only in language. It won't happen. Something else has to happen, and I don't know what that is. No one does. When and if that occurs, there's no question, and nowhere for questions to arise. It's the sublime peace of unknowing, flying headless into a vast unknown unknowableness. Not knowing what's going to happen. We could die at any moment. Aneurysm, stroke, heart attack, buses, carnivores. Who knows what can kill us? Hundreds of virus and bacteria are trying to get in now. This ultimate aliveness of simply being and being human and knowing that we're human because of language. It's not our enemy. It's the great gift, the jewel. You are the jewels of the universe. You're the only place where love and beauty exist. It'll all be over soon enough. Hopefully, you'll be a hospice worker laying, holding your hand, cooling your brow, and giving you a little bit of water and maybe some morphine as you fade back into the nothingness out of which you arose. But look at you now. God, you're so beautiful. There's nothing like you in the entire universe. There couldn't be. Evolution never repeats itself. There's no humans in the universe. Once we're gone, the universe will go black again. Love and beauty will disappear. We've had a pretty good run. We're bound to go extinct sometime. Every organism does. But while we're here, look at you. Raja.
Uh, yeah, I think Michael, at the end of it, there is this forgetting. We always forget who we are and what we are. So we become attached to what is happening out there, attached to, and somehow that attachment draws us into the story, and we start to believe the story. This is the story. This is what is happening, and how am I going to resolve it? And suddenly our whole life it becomes resolving something that doesn't even exist. And so, and it's all, at the end of it all, it's our program. We've been programmed a particular way, a program to solve things in a particular way. And when things go wrong, I think that's it. That's where we all get caught up, is as long as things are going beautifully in our lives, we are so happy about it. Oh, right, this is it. God loves me. God loves me, definitely. Or someone out there loves me. My life is going so well. But then when something goes wrong, suddenly now everything is going out of control. And all your beliefs and everything else is now being questioned. And you start to see, hey, I can't detach from this. Now I'm more into this whole story again, you know? And I'm supposed to embrace whatever is appearing, even if it's all this, whatever it is. If my life is going totally bonkers, I'm supposed to embrace that as well, you know? And I can't do that now. So, yeah, it's that somehow, like we start to believe the story more and more when things go wrong. When things are right, then it's easier for us to to stand back and watch it all, observe this and see it like it's as happening out there. So I don't know. I find that most people who are in problems and having problems can't seem to embrace that. And even conflicts too, So like when I was having a conflict, I find it easier when I talk about examples. When I was having a conflict with my brother, when he first came, like this was like 2 years ago, we were like having like shouting matches. I was shouting and he was shouting. And it was terrible. We couldn't get to listening to each other until I spoke to, I think it was Michael. And then suddenly I calmed down now. And I'm now listening, Now it's like I'm present now and listening. And I'm hearing what he is saying. I'm listening to what he is saying. And although he was still like playing his games, but now the whole thing changed. I was present, listening, observing, trying to make meaning of this. I love my brother. Why am I screaming at him? And why is he screaming at me? And then somehow like that, some resolution came. But I don't know. I mean, it's the thing. But it was like I put aside all the things that I was feeling now, all this unpleasantness and everything just went away now. And suddenly I was present and listening and feeling what they were feeling too, And it changed. Somehow the whole dynamics of the relationship changed. I wouldn't say it became a beautiful relationship, but at least we can get on. We're talking. We didn't split like and went two separate ways now. So, yeah, some things are like that. I don't know if you can read anything into that, but it was good sharing. Thanks.
Claire.
But it's not Claire, it's me. I'm afraid
Okay.
I've got to leave for this marvelous meeting because I need my beauty sleep. I've got an interview at 8 o'clock in the morning with the BBC, and I want to make a good impression. So I'm sorry to have to leave now, but before I leave, I want to say goodbye, of course, and say that I'm always inspired by those meetings. So thank you very much indeed. It's fantastic. Have an enjoyable rest of the meeting and nice morning or evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sylvain. Cutie.
I was actually going to share something that came up. I'm going to take Sylvain's chair as you were talking, Razia, and about how easy it is to identify when you're not liking parts of the dream. And I was wondering about that, and I was this is what I was getting to earlier with the thing about conflict. It can be so easy to get attached and identified when there's a physical sensation. And I think it's Michael, you talk about the primal apes or the killer apes. It's something really instinctive in us, isn't it? It's when someone takes your bananas, you have a sort of rush of adrenaline, your fists clench and it's sort of inescapable. It's going to happen. And that's the part of the dream that feels real because you've got that adrenaline rush, you've got the cortisol, you've got those hormones, all the chemicals. And it feels very real because there's a body and it's having chemical reactions, and it's very difficult to sort of detach, I suppose. You're going to respond, aren't you, to that in that moment. So I guess sort of I don't have the answer, but I guess how do we it's about soothing the nervous system, isn't it? It's about regulating our nervous system and doing that through shadow work, meditation, maybe therapy. To the point where when these things happen, we don't go into fight or flight quite so quickly, or we can recognize that that's happening almost. Okay, well, that's my nervous system firing up. I've got my old mammalian wiring, which thinks that someone's threatening my turf. Actually, it's just my sister being an idiot, and that's fine. That's not a problem to me. So it's sort of almost you don't need to kind of get caught up in the story to the degree that maybe it was important to get caught up in the story back when we lived in the Serengeti or something like that. So I don't know. That was all I wanted to share. I thought I'd share, but now people have got their hands up, so I can shut up. So that's always good.
Um,
Oliver, yes.
Fight and flight might be very natural, normal, encoded in our genes, the mechanism, but also our evolution might be going beyond what's dictated in our genes. For other creatures, other living beings, there's no intellectual evolution or intelligence in evolution because they don't transfer something from one generation to the another verbally, conceptually. But since we're on this path of evolution, which is not limited by the genes, then we can say that probably there can't be a hard limit in what we can turn into. So maybe getting to peace, I still get what Michael said, but maybe it's not something totally impossible.
Hemingway talks about the generation following has the inability to learn anything from the generation before them. If that were true, wars would be over. Yeah. Zen has a concept of shining a brick. The idea that the self can be changed or made more acceptable or feel comfortable in its imaginary skin is the great illusion. The great illusion is self. How can we improve something that doesn't exist except as a swirling collage of memories? We can't. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as I am. The Surgadata says at least you got that going for you. At least you can count on I am. That's not true at all. There's no I am. There's no we are. It's the great illusion. We can't improve it. We can't change it. We can't alter it. It doesn't exist. So what can we do? Nothing.
What about the collective consciousness? Yeah, you're true that as long as this
That's the great.
perception of individuality exists, it's already an illusion, but collectively we also evolved that
Yeah. Jung had that idea that
opinion.
there's a. I think that's refers to the tribal mind that we grew with over 1 million years. To call it collective conscious or collective unconscious is trying to objectify it. Rowena said when she got back to London, she felt comfortable. When I drive back to Wyoming, I see a little sign on the road that says, "Welcome to Wyoming." And even now, I get a small adrenaline rush from that. I'm back at home, but I don't have a home. I don't exist. There's no place for man to rest his weary head, Christ says. Because there are no places. Places don't exist except in the naming of them. Wyoming doesn't exist. London doesn't exist. England doesn't exist. There's no such place for you to feel comfortable in. Then there's no you to feel comfortable there. That's what I'm talking about, this great shock of whatever happens, the brain collapses, the world collapses. and you're left with nothing.
You're always so cheerful, Michael.
I know it sounds fantastic, doesn't it? I know. Eugene Krishnamurti slaps us in the face with this. He's more brutal than I am. He just lets people have it. Whatever happened to him happened over a period of 6 or 8 months. It was complete agony. The great calamity, he calls it. Nancy Nethercutt went through 6 months of bed of nails, she calls it, agony. And out of that she emerged as nothing. And you can see it in her writings. But in order to speak of that, she's confined to using the objectified perspective, which dilutes it to a point where it's negligible, just a hint in her writings. Miranda, Sakura Nandul. There's quite a few people. Leela talk of this. You're not going to make yourself better. You've tried long enough. If you could improve yourself to the perfect self, nobody would like you. People like me because I talk about all the things I've done, the sins I've committed. In AA, my sponsor loved me more when I went through everything. And the people I sponsored, men and women, which they don't normally recommend for obvious reasons, but I kept my wires uncrossed. I found out women were just like me. They had the same desires, the same wishes, the same wish fulfillment, same fears, same everything. Talking to Christopher, I think he's a miracle. 1 in 32 people who have alcoholism quit for any period of time. You're a hero in my mind, Christopher. I think you're magnificent. Claire.
I think he's magnificent as well. It's so lovely to have people who you know coming to these meetings. I met Rowena last Monday as well. We had lunch in near Newbury, not too far from Oxfordshire where I live. And I'm seeing Dave this week as well. And there's just something so lovely, isn't there, about you say it's sort of it's you can't really connect with somebody else. You can't really, but when you actually look into somebody's eyes, when you're physically there with them, it's real. I mean, you say there are no such thing as mountains. No, there's not, in the sense of you can't name them, but there is such a thing as a mountain in the sense that there's something that you get that you can't put words to. There was something in the interaction that Rowena and I had last week that just felt beautiful. They're just not words. And when I look at Chris, I've got all these memories that come back. And the thing is, there aren't words for it. So it's just really difficult to say what I'm talking about. But I know that you guys know this. I know it's the same because I know you're just lovely people, and there is that connection there. So yeah, it's yeah, I don't know what to say. We can be quite nihilistic with this as well. And and Oliver, I really wanted to say that I hear this. I think that's what it is, because we've all got that desire to make the world a good place. We've all got that desire to come together and to live in harmony and peace and share things and cooperate and collaborate. And Michael, you're bloody laughing again, because I know I know it's a bit of a sort of, you might say it's a pipe dream, it's a fantasy. I'm not sure I'm quite that brutal with it. I think there's things that we can do. I think there is an element of choice here, because if there wasn't, then therapy wouldn't work. So there are certain, and it's wonderful. I'm seeing a shift, and I'm sure Chris is as well, in our professions, where more and more people are becoming interested in this conversation. And Eckhart Tolle talks about it. He's, back in the day, there was Jesus, the Buddha, there were very few early people who you might call awakened. And I'm really not trying to create a sort of a global movement. I'm not, this isn't anything grand. But I think I sort of hear what Oliver says about how things may change, things may shift. It may be that, some old systems are, new systems might be forming. There may be new ways of doing things. I know every generation says this. It's just interesting to talk about. I'm not saying there's an answer. I'm not saying we're the answer, that there's a solution. But I just want to say that I hear you, Oliver, and Michael, I also hear you as well. So I'm just being diplomatic.
Rowena?
Yeah, so talking happens and then the subject changes, but so my understanding really as I spend now recently quite a lot of time with myself and myself, but it's like this whole self system, the selfing system, which there's no self that exists, it's a self, is a survival mechanism. And so by its nature, since it's a survival filled with defense, the moment we are no longer open and we've had to close down and the self structure has to be made, I have to be a me or a you. Recently, I went to this retreat, and my husband died a year ago, and the name is way too long. It's a nightmare because he joined his mother's and his father's name together for some reason. And so I was thinking of changing my name back to my maiden name. And I was sitting there and I was doing just sort of a contemplation. And so I said my name to myself, and I was filled with terror. It's very strange. And there were all these like little, self-images of me as a little girl. And then later on, it was like, and even the word you, it's like there's a cringing of like, I'm bad, I'm not enough, and therefore I've got to hide. And I had all these feelings associated with the name and I had to sort of clean them. I just sort of sat with this fear and this it was horrible. It was so strange too. I mean, I wasn't horrified by it. But I was just so overcome somehow by this sensitivity that's developed, much more sensitivity towards these things, which I would have never noticed before. I had that name for 30 years until I got married, or nearly 30 years. And I was living with all this hidden cringing. That's all self mechanism, survival mechanism, going back to like a core belief of that I am not good enough the way I am, or some sort of, pre-verbal. So that was the one thing. And then the other thing was there's a biologist, I think calls himself an evolutionary biologist, called Richard Sheldrake. And I had the fortune to meet him and chat with him. And I had already moved from the States, then to Belgium, and I was speaking to him and I said, I always get this thing when I come to England. It's like I land and something energetically happens in my system. And it's like clunk, And he said, oh, yeah, well, it's homing pigeons. And so, there is something maybe. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's just a story. But I was just thinking of that too.
Oh. Thank you. Raja?
I didn't know I wasn't muted, sorry. Yeah, I was going back to now what Oliver was talking about, a collective consciousness. Now, obviously, it is just a word unless it becomes something that is meaningful to you. If you start to feel this kind of collective consciousness, if you are, do you feel a part of that? Is there some way in which we are connecting with minds that are outside there, brains, other brains? If we are connecting with other brains, then there is a collective consciousness that is developing. If my brain can influence 10 other brains or 100 other brains, then that's collective consciousness. You understand? So we technically have to get to a state where there is telepathy, there is empathy, that I can sit here in my house and think about peace in Palestine, and somehow the people there can feel that peace. That's collective consciousness. Are we at that stage? We don't know. But it's something to think about. I mean, it's nice to define something rather than just dropping the words, you know, so people don't know what is collective consciousness. Now we're coming to an understanding of what it is. It's lots of brains being influenced because they are connected to a mainframe brain, you know, something like that. So, and that is also an illusion in the sense that if there's no one out there, you know. But also now coming to the world question, when people say world peace, why don't we have world peace? Have you ever thought about it? I mean, Palestine doesn't have to be at war with Israel. They can come to an agreement. They can solve that problem there. Ukraine can get out of that war with Russia. It's simple.
No,
It's simple. I can stop it, you know. I mean, I can just sit there and think about it. It'll stop.
no.
Rather you're into government somewhat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just, I'm joking with you. But the thing is, any conflict has people who benefit from it.
Mm,
And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The people who make those weapons want those weapons to be used. If they're making an atom bomb, they're not going to sit with the atom bomb. They have to sell it. And they can't sell it with this peace in the world, you know? So we're looking at people like that, like who are making these weapons and they want to sell it. They're making a whole lot of guns. And if there's no war, how are they going to get rid of the weapons? So, yeah, so that's part of what is also happening. And we don't realize that. Oh, the children in Palestine, the children in Israel want peace. They are the innocents, the innocent ones, the ones that are dying. Because people have a vested interest in war, in guarding our borders, in spending all the money on arms and ammunition rather than on food.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's part of the world problem as well. So, I mean, you know, you think about it, you see that why there can never be peace because of these people as well. And apart from that, we cannot change the story. I don't think so, we can, because it seems to be unfolding the way it is. And all we can do is embrace whatever is appearing. But it's so awesome to be able to think like out of the box about stuff.
There's no box. There's no box. That's been going on for 2,000 years. It's going to continue. Claire, about therapy. Therapy appears to work not because of the words exchanged, because somebody comes in broken, thinking somebody has the answers. They're open. And somebody like yourself, who has spent time, a great deal of effort in learning your craft, is accepted as an authority. And you are non-judgmental. You have trained to not be reactively judgmental. And you are a clean mirror for somebody who is ready and ripe to change. I wouldn't have gone to my neighbor to find therapy. I wanted to find a qualified therapist. And I don't think you've learned technique so much as learned how to be open and non-judgmental and love someone without trying to make them perfect. I think your skill is valuable and wonderful, but I don't think it helps because we think it helps by exchanging words and ideas. I think somebody who comes to you and Christopher is broken. And especially for men don't like to talk about this stuff. For a man to come into a therapist is so hard. But to come into someone like you and Christopher with your training and skill and craft, non-judgmental, that's the healing that happens, I think. I love my therapists. They live with me now, each one of them. The tears, the vomiting up of all that humanness. Christopher, what do you, I think we're out of time. I'd love to hear from you.
On therapy.
On therapy.
You know what? It's really interesting. Yeah, therapy can also can do a lot of damage, I have to admit, at times too, if it's not. And there's a lot of theories and all of that stuff that I think can also get people into all kinds of jams because it's all intellectual. For me, yeah, a lot of the healing is in the presence, being non-judgmental,
Mm.
holding, caring. I care deeply for each one of my clients. So, and it's an honor to sit with somebody who is in the midst of their struggles,
Mm.
their emotional struggles, whatever they're going through. And it's almost like the more they struggle, the more you kind of are realizing that they're at the tip of maybe a breakthrough.
Mm.
Because I believe in ourselves, there's an innate part of us at the core that has a knowledge of how to heal itself. It just needs somebody to be with that person in that moment.
Mm.
You can help in certain ways, maybe to ask certain questions, but I don't, I never, whenever I went through all of my difficulties too, it wasn't, it was being with the right person um, that allowed me to see myself for who I was. And anybody that tried to tell me you should do this, it's that kind of, it doesn't work. So how can I allow that person to see themselves for who they are?
Mm.
Now, it's slightly different from, of course, the non-dual state. But I think there are elements of when one's with somebody and just being present, that there are sometimes is a moment of just being one.
Mm. That's lovely.
And therapists like Chris really, really get it as well. I was really reflecting on what you shared last time, Chris, just about, you've been there. You're not afraid to shy away from other people's pain. And a lot of therapists said that there comes a point when the client they're going into something quite deep and quite painful, and there can be a sort of subtle withdrawing if you're not willing to meet them where they're going. They can feel quite lonely, quite isolated, and as you say, they can do to harm therapists. I've had therapists in the past who I knew I was too much for them, but I didn't know that really there was just this sort of slight recalling in them, and I thought, oh my God, I'm too screwed up even for a therapist, because you, on an energetic level, you have a sort of you pick up on their body language, you pick up on their resistance to you. So if you've sort of, as I know you have, you've really been there, you've been through this, like Nancy, you've lain on the bed of nails, it was almost like nothing kind of shakes you anymore. You're not resisting where your client's taking you. You can just be led by them completely. You just go where they want to go, whatever story they tell you there with them, you're holding their hand, you're following them back into the childhood, back into the horrible boss, whatever's going on, you're there with them. And I think you sort of have to be totally open. So there is that non-dual part of it, because it's just that openness to what is. There's not that sense of separation. Here's me and here's the client. I'm here with you, and here we are going on our journey, and it's all the same thing. I'm here with you. And I think, as Michael says, I think that must be what does it. It's just that fact that you're not alone. There's not a separation. It's not just you. So yeah, I know that you're a really good therapist. I'm not flattering you.
I think also
It was a compliment anyway. You've been through shit, so this is great.
I think also the fact that they're paying for it. My psychiatrist was $320 an hour, so I didn't want to waste money by avoiding the issues. I think that is a factor. I do, and I think it's so many more dynamics than we can possibly objectify that goes on. But I think both of you touched upon what I think happened between me and my therapist. I think you have a wonderful profession. I love you.
Love you too.
Mm.
We're gonna have a final point from David.
It's very little to do with any of the topics, but I just picked up on Michael saying that how much the trick cyclist cost. And I was reflecting that when I was at work, I would quite happily give people all sorts of instructions and details on how to look after their teeth whilst I was doing some other job. And they didn't take any notice. But I noticed that if I got them in specially and charged them a lot of money for the advice, that they'd take the advice and they'd act on it. And I'd have cheerfully given the same advice for nothing. And I often tried to, but it didn't work. And you had to actually charge people a reasonable sum of money and make them hurt before they actually listen and do what you were saying. It was just a thought that I had from what Michael said. That was all. Anyway, I'm sure we're running over time now, so I'll leave it be.
Yeah, we're charging by the minute, David.
Michael Kramer, it's so good to see you here.
Hi. I just was very busy today, and luckily I dropped in at last.
Yes.
I think the love is the most important for the healing. It's absolutely the essential thing, and it's very often not the words, but what is going with them, the feeling, the emotion that helps the most.
Oh, truly. Well, I think we are out of time, are we not, Claire?
Yes, yes. The time is real.
What time is it on the sun?
Bedtime for us. No more sun here. Good
Sometime.
night, everybody.
Good night.
Yeah,
Good
good night,
night.
everybody.
Okay.
Sleep well.